Okay guys, so the ingredients we're going to be using today will be 1 cup of warm water. I've heated it to about 110 degrees so that it won't kill the yeast. So that brings us to yeast, powdered milk, sugar, melted butter, 2 large eggs, but we've got to separate them because they don't play well together. 1 pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie mix. There's a big difference. So you want the puree. Salt, flour, and pecan pieces. First thing we need to do, and we need to do this quickly, is add the sugar to the water. Give that a stir, and then add in our yeast. The yeast eats the sugar and grows. Okay, next, we want to mix our wet ingredients. So we are going to take the egg, the pumpkin, the butter. Remember, get all that butter, because it ain't cheap. And we are going to give this a little mix. That's pretty good. Our yeast is starting to bubble, so that tells me it's good. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And give it a little stir. Now I'm going to add in my powdered milk. Now we're going to scrape it down a little bit. Let me move this a little bit closer. Now we're going to start adding in our flour, but just about 1/3 of it. Once that gets mixed in, we'll add a little bit more. Then we're going to toss in our salt. Then I'll go ahead and add in a little more flour, but not too quickly or it'll sling it everywhere. Okay, the mixer's starting to struggle a little bit, and that means it's time to change attachments. So we're going to take off the paddle attachment, scrape it down. And while we're scraping, we'll go ahead and scrape the bowl. And now we're going to put on the dough hook. We're going to let this start spinning until it starts pulling the dough away from the sides of the bowl. We may need to add a little bit more of this flour. We may not. It just depends. It's something you're going to have to play by ear. We're almost there, but it needs just a little bit more flour. Okay, so our bread is done. We've let it knead for about 9 or 10 minutes actually. Pull this dough hook out so you can actually see what we got going on here. It's pulled away from the sides. It's a little bit tacky, but not overly sticky. I'm going to pull it off the hook. Get a little oil on my fingers. And then I'm going to dump this into my hand. I want more oil on my fingers. Which over here we just have a greased bowl. Some oil on this hand. And I just want to pull this over into a ball. Twist the end down. Slide it around in this bowl. I want to cover all sides of this dough ball. I'm going to put one of these caps over it. We're going to let this sit where there's no drafts until it doubles in size. This could take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, so just leave it alone and let it do its thing. When it's doubled in size, I'll bring you back and show you the next step. Okay, so we're back, and our rolled dough has doubled in size, and I'm going to pour it out onto this floured surface and punch it down. A little flour on my hands. Fold it over. Now that we have this dough, I'm going to divide it into 16 pieces, trying to keep them as equal as possible. Okay, I'm going to do just half at a time. Put the cover back on this to keep it from drying out. Okay, so this one's a little bit smaller, this one's a little bit bigger. We'll add that to this. And we'll add this to this. And that should get them all about right. And I'm just going to fold this over onto itself. Make a nice little ball. Then I'm going to roll it on the counter in my hand, barely pushing down. We're going to roll out any seams. You can't get a good grip on the counter with it. You can do it between your palms. Just be gentle. Okay, that looks good. And we're going to do that with the rest of these. The counter's just too slick. We want to try and keep them close to the same size. That way they bake evenly. Okay, I'm going to finish rolling these up and then I will bring you back. Okay, so I have finished rolling my rolls. I'm going to put them over here on this cutting board for the moment. And the first thing I want to do is find the center of each one, and I'm going to take a wooden spoon handle and push down in the center. Alright, now that we've got that done, I'm going to take a knife and coming up to probably a ½ inch from the center hole, I'm just going to slicing 8 slices. Then I'm going to reshape it so it's nice and round. And here we have our roll. We'll put this on a parchment lined baking sheet and just continue doing this. Cut across from each other, then turn it and cut across from that one. So we have 4. Then we're going to cut in between. And then we push it back together and place this on our sheet. And you don't have to do every one of them with 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, because not all pumpkins have the same number of ribs or grooves or whatever you call it. So I'm going to finish cutting these and then I'll bring you back to show you the next step. Alright guys, so we're back and our pumpkin rolls have finished rising. I don't remember if I told you I was going to cover them loosely with saran wrap. You want to keep any air movement off of them to keep them from drying out. And I also did spray them lightly with cooking spray just to make sure that nothing stuck to them. Now that they have risen, I have an egg wash here, which is just an egg and a couple tablespoons of water whisked together. And I am going to brush these gently, not to disturb them and deflate them, but I'm going to brush them very generously. And I have my oven preheating to 350 degrees. You want to make sure that when you are brushing these with your egg wash that you get into these little crevices. I know I'm being a little bit sloppy and getting the egg wash all over the paper, but that's fine. That's why we use the paper, so we don't have to worry about getting dried egg off of the metal sheet pan. I know you don't want to watch me brush each and every one of these, so I will just tell you what I'm going to do. As soon as I get them brushed, they will go into the oven for 15 to 20 minutes at 350, and when they come out, I will bring you back. Okay guys, our pumpkin rolls are out of the oven, and I've just been brushing them with some melted butter to help keep the tops nice and tender. It's another great thing about these rolls are these little cuts that we made give lots of nooks and crannies for the butter to go into. Also, the butter helps remove any of the flour that is stuck to the top or the sides. Well, I think that's pretty well drenched. Okay, so we have our basic pumpkin shape. The next thing to do is give him that final touch. We're going to take the pecan and stick them right in the center where we made those holes with a wooden spoon, creating the pumpkin stems. Some of my holes closed up, so it's a little more difficult. That one went in pretty easy. There we go. And this is how we make our pumpkin bread. These over here have been out just a few minutes. No, these are warmer. These have been out for a little bit, and let's see. This one looks a little bit funny, so I am going to try it. It's still kind of warm. But can you see how yummy that looks? Yummy. That's a new description. It looks yummy. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this melted butter and slather it on the inside. Ow. and burn my fingers. Let's just take this little piece off here. They're pretty good. They kind of remind me of like a potato bread. You really can't taste the pumpkin seasoning, or the pumpkin for that matter. So I think these will impress your guests for Thanksgiving. I mean, look at them. Everybody has their own little pumpkin that's really bread, and they get a little piece of pecan. So if you like the idea of this recipe and want to try it, go ahead. I'll put the recipe down below in the description. Also in the description, make sure you check out the other channels that are participating in the 30 days of Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next time. Okay guys, so our thingajigs are done, and so it's, you know,